So the first question is, who are you?
I'm Teresa Dillon.
And what was your first experience of the Cube?
My first experience of the Cube it's actually a very sweet memory because I used to live in Glasgow with Rod Mack, and it was his birthday, which I didn't know. It was actually his 30th birthday. And I was still living in Holland, and I phoned him to say that I was moving to Bristol. And he told me that he's in the middle of his 30th birthday at the Cube, which I had actually heard about the Cube from Rod and also from a friend of ours, David, who we both used to work with in Glasgow. So on one level, my first memory of the Cube is actually through its people and a party spirit in a way. And then when I came to Bristol, I was living in Stokes Croft, and Rod invited me to come down to the Cube. And it was funny because it's one of those memories where I didn't really know where I was going, and then there was this place that's called Dove Street, which is such a beautiful name, and I was trying to find it, and so I found Dove Street. And then he said to me that you might miss it, that it looks like it's in a car park. And I just saw the sign, the symbol really in a way, which was always so kind of, I guess, graphically clear. But went down the steps, walked in, and there's this kind of red, dim light. I was like, what's going on here? Because I thought I was actually going into a club or into some quite big centre. And then somebody said, yes, the performance is on. It's through that door. And I can see it in my mind's eye because I opened the door and I thought I would walk in to some larger room, but I actually walked into a cinema, and obviously everyone is looking in the one direction, and I just remember thinking, oh my gosh, what is this? And it was reverent and quiet, and it already had its mystique. But I think Timmy Lee was the first person that I met at that night, actually. He was one of either the volunteers or working on it or in it. So that's my memory of the Cube.
Because you thought it was a club.
I guess I didn't really know what exactly to expect, but I think the physical layout of the space wasn't what my body or my mind was prepared for, really, in a way, which was kind of the Alice in Wonderland feel of opening this door, thinking I'm going somewhere else, but actually I was walking into a cinema that was like pitch black, and I couldn't find and shuffled. I remember shuffling into the first seat, and it's lovely. It was I can see it, and I can see myself opening the door. It's actually a really nice memory.
This might be similar, but how did you come to be involved in the Cube?
In terms of my involvement in the Cube, it has been more, I guess, in the capacity of organising events in Bristol in general, and because I guess of that history as well with Rod. So when did I move here? I think it was 2003, and I started putting on events, and the Cube was a natural place to start to have that conversation. Actually, Kate Rich reminded me recently that possibly one of the first things I did with Kate, who's also been quite a fundamental person in relation to the Cube's history, was an almost experimental documentary in relation to some of her work, and we kind of were doing this ethnobiographic documentary, and that was sort of one of the first times I guess I physically spent a lot of time in the Cube. And then I started to work with Chiz and Mark and John on Venn, and so was organising quite a few of the Venn events down here and supporting that. And then I also worked with the Cube in relation to Offload, which was quite a significant festival for me to organise here in 2007. And then various different sort of experimental music nights which were associated to Offload and to sound art nights that I was working with Kathy Hind on. But I guess my relationship with the Cube has been really with those who have been managing it and coordinating it and running kind of events.
Okay, this is the big one. What is the Cube?
What is the Cube? It's more than just the space, actually. I think that's just the tip of the iceberg. What has been really interesting for me was that about 2 weeks ago in Dublin, I was curating a show called Hack the City, and Kate Rich and Cale Brandon were there selling Cube Cola, making Cube Cola. That was one of the core pieces that were part of the exhibition. And I think that the ethos and the attitude really, which for me kind of goes back to Rod's attitude, goes back to Glasgow days, goes back to my memories of working here with Chiz and Mark and John and Ben, is really about a spirit of a DIY, almost punk spirit of production and distribution and community, really. And I think that is a very important attitude, which I would find orientates us and probably keeps us in conversation together even after all of these years, because now I don't live in Bristol and my connection with the Cube is very kind of remote in that respect. It's through the memory, or it's through working with the people I just mentioned. But I think that for me it's really about a way of being and a way of making, and that is something that, as I say, continues within all of our work, and it doesn't really matter to some extent whether you're actually directly involved anymore with the Cube. It's actually part of that Cube attitude, and I think it's a really important one to consider, particularly given the very consumer-driven society that we live in and the market forces that are usually pushing the production of creative output. So for me, the Cube is an attitude.
And where are you going?
To Wilko's to buy some tile paint. Where am I going? I love the fact that I'm going to be flying back to Dublin, to Ireland later on today. I love the fact that I come back to Bristol and I can meet with the people that are here, that are part of my home ground. I love the fact there's a bit of the Cube in Dublin, in the institution that I work with at the moment, in the form of Cube Cola. And I love the fact that I know that it doesn't matter probably where I live in the world, we will actually continue.
Okay, and the bonuses, well, no, maybe I'll do the extra one as well. But can you make a stupid face and make a stupid noise?
Okay, my stupid face is... Actually, do you know what? This is quite funny, because at the weekend, the guy that was he was in Red Dwarf, Ray Charles, something Charles.
Craig Charles.
Craig
yeah.
Charles. He was DJing at the Lanes here, and I went with some friends to see him, and he was pulling some of the best grinning faces ever. So in honour of Mr. Red Dwarf as DJ, this is how it looked. Okay, which I hope did him honours. So that's my stupid face. My sound. Ooh. Ooh.
And I just thought this might be a good idea to ask people, can you draw a cube in the air?
Can I draw a cube in the air?
Yeah. Just in
okay, so...
Yeah, in front of you, because the frame's sort of like that, so...
Right. My cube.
Thank you. Brilliant.